Good morning, everyone. I'm Tara Rodriguez, Director of the Division of School and Program Improvement here at the Kentucky Department of Education. I'm so glad you're able to join me on this wintry morning. My co-host, Jennifer Aiken, was not able to join me this morning due to the icy road conditions, but we have a full program for you here today, and hopefully you will find some interesting and informative information today. So let's go over a few of the logistics of the webinar. If you have any questions, please submit those to me via email at tara.rodriguez@education.ky.gov. I probably will not be able to answer those during the webinar, but we will make sure to get an answer to you as soon as possible afterward. Also, the webinar will be recorded, and the link to the recording and to the PowerPoint will be posted to our Documents and Resources page, usually within about a day or so of the live webinar. So let's go over a little bit about the agenda. We're going to start with a quick review of the November webinar topics. I'll talk some about district boundaries. Then I'm going to go into depth on a document that was sent out recently called the Notification of Tentative Census Poverty and Hold Harmless Percentages. And then I'll just give you a quick reminder about our February Title I regional meetings. So let's go over the review of the November webinar quickly. In that webinar, there was information about the importance of ongoing consultation with private school officials if your district serves private schools. We also gave some information about parent and family engagement, which is a very timely topic since this is one of the main areas where districts have findings during monitoring. The webinar in November also discussed reallocations of Title I funds. What are the reasons why revised allocations are released and what that means for Title I coordinators. And that topic ties in well with some of the information we're going to present today, which explains a bit more about how the Title I allocations are determined. And I want to point out something real quick here. These webinars, and anybody is welcome to join, but we started these as a support specifically for new coordinators. So we've tried to focus on topics that we hope will be of benefit and a support to new coordinators. And so I'm hoping that the topics today will also meet some needs of new coordinators, although of course everyone's welcome to join. So the next slide we're going to talk about is the School and District Review Program. Information about this program has been sent in the Commissioner's emails in November, and the emails basically provided some information about the School District Review Program and asking districts to check their boundaries. Now, although the period for making corrections to boundaries ended in December 31st, I wanted to talk about the Boundary Review Program because it does tie in to Title I allocations. The School District Review Program, or SDRP, involves the process of reviewing, updating, and revising different types of information about school districts, which you can see listed here. Whether it's the school district ID number, the boundaries, the school district name, grade ranges that are served, and so on. And notice these changes involve districts, not schools within districts. So some districts pointed out that their middle school is serving some different grade ranges than before, but we're not really looking at changes to schools or school attendance boundaries. We're really looking at the district level. There are two phases in the SDRP, okay? The first one is the annotation phase, and the verification phase is the second one. During the annotation phase, which begins in the fall, usually around September, KDE will send out a notification that the annotation phase has begun and that this is the time for reviewing district information. Also, during the annotation phase, KDE will submit any changes to the Census Bureau. The second phase is the verification phase. This phase begins around in March, and during this phase, KDE officials and districts will review the changes that were made during the annotation phase. No new changes can be submitted during the verification phase. It's just a chance to review and make sure that the changes submitted during the annotation phase were correct. The verification phase this year will begin in March. Tiger Web is an important part of the school district review program. It is a tool that mapping coordinators and local officials can use to review their school district boundaries. Now, even though we're not in the annotation phase when we can actually make changes, you can still look at your district boundaries at any time. And so what I wanted to do is to take you to the Tiger Web page and walk you through a little bit on how to use that so that you can check your boundaries. Tiger Web is sometimes just a little, it could be a little bit overwhelming, so I want to walk you through that so that you can check your boundaries anytime you would like. So this is what you get to if you click the link that's in the PowerPoint slide. And if you want to pull up your boundary, what I usually like to do, in Tiger Web there's a lot of ways to do different things, but my favorite way to do it is to go to this third button right here, which is called Query. It looks like a little magnifying glass. And I click that, and you'll get this box that pops up, and you need to put in some information here. So when you select a map, we're looking at your school district, and most of the time you're going to click Unified, okay? I don't put anything in here in the GOID, that's just the way I do it, but I do put in a name of the district. And since KDE is in Frankfort, I'm going to put in Frankfort. And then you submit. Okay, now you see that over here on the left-hand side, it's pulled up several districts across the country that have Frankfort in the name. So I'm just going to select the one that I'm interested in, which is the one in Kentucky. You see here that the map has highlighted Frankfort Independent School District. Kind of hard to tell that in this view, but we see we are in Franklin County, and it is highlighting Frankfort Independent. It's kind of hard to see this though. We really need some roads or some kind of identifying features to help us know what we're looking at and to check those boundaries. So we go over here to this button up at the top left called Layers. Now this is where you can click boxes to add different features to the map that will allow you to determine and examine those boundaries. One that I really recommend, you can choose whatever you like, but I recommend the roads. That really helps you get a sense of what you're looking at. Now, you can zoom in, get a closer look, and if you can pan around on here too. You just hold down your click, you click, and you just drag the cursor around. And you can examine any area of the map that you would like to do. So we can zoom in some more if we want to. Sometimes it takes it just a second to refresh. I'm not sure why our highlight's gone away. Let's see if we can zoom back out and get it back. Okay, it's not going to highlight anymore. But another interesting thing that we can do here is that we can also go into the satellite view. And that shows us, that will show us the boundaries and a lot of other features that we might be familiar with in our district. Okay, so it's not letting me let go of this for some reason. But that is how that you can review your boundaries. Now, I don't know why it has suddenly non-highlighted the district. Usually that district stays highlighted, and you can then go and examine even at the satellite view and take a look at all the features that you know should be in your boundary or not. And you can do that at any time. So if you have any questions about Tiger Web or about the SDRP process, please send me an email and I'll be happy to talk to you about that. So let's go on and go back to our presentation. So let's talk a little bit about why we actually do this SDRP. We're going to talk about the purpose and how it relates to Title I allocations. And remember, we talked about Title I allocations during the November webinar. We mentioned hold harmless. We're going to go more into depth on that. That's the purpose of talking about these boundaries, the purpose of the SDRP, and the purpose of the next document that we're going to talk about, which was the notification of the hold harmless rates. The school district information obtained through the SDRP, along with several other pieces of data and information, which are listed here on this slide, are used to form the Census Bureau estimates of the number of children aged 5 through 17 in families in poverty in each school district. And these estimates form the basis of the Title I allocation for each school district. So it's very important to check those boundaries, and we're going to talk some more about this document, which it goes more in depth and expands upon this topic about how hold harmless percentages are made in schools and in school districts. So let's pull this document up. This document was sent in the commissioner's email, and it was on January the 14th when this went out. It is also posted to the Title I page on the Documents and Resources page. There in the center section, if you look, you'll find it. And I'm going to just scroll through this document and point out some of the highlights as we scroll through. Point out some of the highlights here that you will want to know about and that will help inform you about how these allocations are made. We get questions from districts quite often about how this allocation was made, why is it maybe lower than last year, and so on, and hopefully this document can help answer some of those questions. This document contains the information released by the United States Department of Education, and it represents the Title I Part A hold harmless amounts for the next school year. This information allows districts to begin planning and examining needs for the next school year. This U.S. Census Bureau creates these estimates based on information such as tax return information, public assistance participation, and public surveys, as well as the census, the mapping and district boundaries that we were just talking about. It's important to keep in mind that these are estimates, and generally they will not align with actual enrollment numbers, average daily attendance, or other sources, because a formula is used to calculate these numbers for every district in the United States. So let's talk about formula children and what that means. Okay? The Title I Part A allocations are based on estimates of numbers of formula children, which are at-risk and low-income children living within your district boundaries. These children are those ages 5 to 17 that are identified in poverty, foster care, or neglected. Poverty children are those ages 5 to 17 that reside in the boundaries of your school district and live below the poverty level identified by the U.S. Census Bureau. Notice that it's not talking about free and reduced lunch. We're talking about poverty level, okay? Foster children, it's that second bullet there, are those ages 5 to 17 living in licensed facilities or living in foster care for 30 consecutive days, one of those days being in October. This is updated annually by the Kentucky Cabinet for Families and Children and reported to the U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services. Neglected children are those aged 5 to 17 residing in local institutions for neglected children. This too is reported annually by the Kentucky Department of Education to the United States Department of Education. These students must have resided in an institution for neglected children for at least 30 consecutive days, at least one day of which was in the month of October. The actual notification explains a bit more. This document explains more regarding how these numbers are derived, as well as the challenge process. Okay, so here's a notice in bold here that the numbers in this chart do not reflect free and reduced lunch numbers, nor do they reflect actual enrollment numbers. It's based on a variety of different information that is entered into a formula. So this part right here talks about the challenge process, okay? If you believe the numbers are wrong, the deadline to challenge is March the 4th, 2019. Keep in mind that the Census Bureau is not likely to change your allocation unless there proves to be human error such as data entry mistakes, okay? If you do believe that there is an error and you wish to challenge your numbers, please also notify your KDE Title I Part A consultant, okay? And so this this document the information shows why it's important to always check your district boundaries, as I mentioned earlier, as it may change the number of students that go into those formulas. And it's also very important to encourage participation when community census surveys are taken every 10 years, as it does affect your district funding. So let's talk a little bit about the Title I Part A funding sources. Title I Part A allocations are awarded from a combination of 4 different pots of money: basic grants, concentration grants, targeted, and education finance incentive grants, which are commonly referred to as EFIG. Each grant has a different set of criteria in order to qualify for the award. So let's talk briefly about each one of those. In order to qualify for basic grants, the number of formula children must be more than 10 and more than 2% of the total number of school-aged population. For concentration grant, a district qualifies as long as the number of formula children exceeds either 6,500 or 15% of the total number of children aged 5 to 17. As long as the district qualifies in the current school year or has qualified at least one time in the past 4 years, the district is eligible for this grant. The district can fall out of this grant if this criteria isn't met. For targeted grants, the number of formula children must be at least 10 and at least 5% of the total number of children ages 5 to 17. And in order for a district to receive EFIG grants, the number of formula children must be at least 10 and at least 5% of the total number of children ages 5 to 17. Generally speaking, most districts don't fall out of basic, targeted, or EFIG funding. Concentration grants is the one that districts may fall out of. In preparation of our notification to you from this handout, we check these figures and notify districts if they will not be receiving this funding so that you can prepare accordingly. We're happy to report that no district fell out of this grant this year. So let's talk in the next section about hold harmless provisions, and we had talked some about this in the November webinar as well. Title I Part A has a variable hold harmless formula. This is a tentative hold harmless, and it's the district's rock bottom percentage of last year's allocation amount you will receive as long as Congress appropriates enough funding to meet everyone's hold harmless amount, or as long as the districts all qualify for the 4 grants we just discussed. Remember, it's possible to fall out of one of those grants, which would likely lower the actual allocation. These hold harmless amounts allow district to begin their Title I Part A program and collaboration with other programs before the allocations are actually available. You can apply your hold harmless percentage to this year's allocation to have an idea of the amount of funds you can plan for. Hold harmless percentages are assigned as follows. If your district poverty percentage is over 30%, your hold harmless will be 95%. If your district poverty percentage is between 15 and 30%, your hold harmless rate will be 90%. If your district poverty percentage is less than 15%, your hold harmless will be 85%. So as an example, if your allocation this year is $100,000 and your hold harmless percentage is 95% because your poverty percentage is over 30%, then the amount you could plan for is 95% of your allocation, which would be $95,000. Okay, so you could use $95,000 for planning and budgeting purposes. Understand that KDE does not generate these numbers. Okay, so here the rest of the document shows all the districts, their some different information. At the end, it shows your percent poverty and your hold harmless percentage. So based on the information that we just talked about the poverty percentage, that should correlate with your hold harmless percentage as well. And that's the rest of the document showing the hold harmless percentages. Understand that KDE does not generate these numbers, nor can KDE change the numbers. We receive them and report them to you at face value. So hopefully this has been informative and helped explain some of the document to you that was available. Again, it's on our Title I webpage if you would like to have a copy of that. So let's move on to a few quiz questions and see how you did on retaining that information. Let me get out of this and go back to our slide here, and Quiz question 1. How can the information in the notification of tentative census poverty and hold harmless percentages document benefit schools and districts? And the answer is, if you said the hold harmless amounts allow districts to begin examining needs and planning for the next school year, you were correct. Second question. Which of the following grants are not one of the 4 pots of money that make up a district's Title I Part A allocation? And if you said census grants, you were correct. The others are the 4 pots of money that go into the Title I allocation. Last question. Title I Part A allocations are based on estimates of formula children, which are at-risk and low-income children living within district boundaries. Formula children are... And if you said ages 5 through 17 and identified as those in poverty, foster care, or neglected, you were correct. Remember, it does not have to do with the numbers of students receiving free and reduced lunch in your district. All right, so hopefully that was informative to you, but if you have any questions at all, please email me or Jennifer Aiken, and our contact information will be on the slide at the end. I wanted to give you all a reminder about some regional Title I meetings that are scheduled during the month of February. We have several dates and locations available. If you have not yet had a chance to register, we have a registration link that is on the, this information is posted on our main Title I webpage. The registration link is there if you would like to register. And also I wanted to mention that here's a couple of resources. There's a link to the SDRP, which gives some information. The link to TigerWeb, again, was on a previous slide. Here's our contact information, and I wanted to also finally tell you how glad I am that you were able to join this morning. I hope that this has been good information for you. Jennifer and I and some other staff will be at the National Association of ESEA State Program Administrators, or NASPA, conference next week in Kansas City. I know some of our districts are going to be attending, and if you are one of those, send us a shout out if we can stop and say hi to you. We'd love to do that and meet some of our district staff. If not, then hopefully you'll be able to join us at our webinar next month, and maybe I'll be able to see you at one of the regional meetings in February. Hopefully we'll see you soon. Thank you so much for joining today.